There are two very key changes NASA are suggesting to our constitution that are worth noting. Those of us who do not look at politics through partisan eyes, through tribalistic eyes, are very much aware that Raila Odinga and NASA are fighting for change. Indeed, that is one of the open secrets that have always assisted NASA to smart Jubilee at every turn. Yeah, let me just explain very quickly. Jubilee always assume that they are fighting against NASA, who want to ascend to power. Yeah, they're assuming this is a straight political fight, whereby NASA want to ascend to power as soon as possible, like yesterday. Okay, and therefore the Jubilee tactics are aimed at an opponent who is fighting to gain power. However, to somebody who wants to see, or somebody who wants to open their eyes just a little wider, it is very obvious that what NASA are fighting for is change. Yeah, they are fighting for an end to electoral fraud. They are fighting for change, for a better society for Kenyans, for a better Kenya for our children, our great-grandchildren, etc., etc. Indeed, NASA's main objective is not just to get into State House. Their main objective is for massive, widespread change, yeah, to correct the evils, to correct the fraud, and to ensure that never again, yeah, never again will fraudsters hold the country of Kenya at ransom. The changes that Jubilee are suggesting are, firstly, the IEBC be devolved. Yeah, that means that each county has its own IEBC which conducts and finalizes elections. Yeah, and then the second suggestion is that we change from a presidential system to a parliamentary system. Now, in this latest proposal from NASA, if you're doubting what I've just told you, it is very clear that NASA are going about their business pole pole, yeah, gradually. They want complete overhaul, complete change in Kenya. Okay? The idea is not to get into State House as soon as possible, because I assure you, if the idea was to get into State House as soon as possible, the tactics would be very different. There would be no need to suggest changes. Yes, after all, you want to get into State House and exercise the powers that are there. Yeah, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so it is very clear that what they want is change. Because why change to a parliamentary system when you're waiting to get into power? Yeah. Now let's take a very quick look at these changes and what they would mean. Now, one of the reasons why we are having this crisis, many people don't know. One of the reasons why we have this current crisis is that everything happened, yeah, everything was triggered by a landmark case, which you hear lawyers quoting all the time, the Maina Kiai case. Now, the Maina Kiai judgment, yeah, simply affirmed what is already in the Constitution, that the election ends at the polling station level. Yeah, that is, the results announced at the polling stations are final. Now, of course, those who crafted the 2010 Constitution were already aware of all the fiddling that had been done in elections in the past. And the whole idea here was to make it very difficult to rig elections. Yeah, virtually impossible. Now, you'll remember that this was fought very strongly by IEBC and Jubilee. Yes, this development. And as we can now see in retrospect, the reason was very simple. The whole idea was that somebody wanted to retain the power to fiddle with elections and have minimal legal oversight of what they're doing. And of course, this is what led to the blackout in polling stations on the 8th of August. Yeah, because if the elections are final at the polling station, then the whole idea was have a blackout on the polling station so the people don't know what the results are at the polling stations. So how can you contest the results at the national level when you don't even know what the results of the polling stations were? Yeah, that remains a government secret. Indeed, polling stations were no-go zones. Yeah, immediately the voting ended, they were sealed off by tight security, and we know what happened. Yeah, in fact, in one very hilarious case which I keep on quoting, some journalists were told you just give me your email address, we'll send you the results later. Yeah, meaning that this, if you send an email, you can't scrutinize, you can't ask questions, you can't, and it's several days later, memory fades. Yeah, so it becomes easier to hide, the fiddling and so on and so forth. And so by making a slight adjustment in our laws so that the county is each county has its own IEBC, this is yet another safeguard that will make it that much more difficult for anybody in future to fiddle with elections, or rather to fiddle with election results. I'm talking, of course, presidential election results. Now, I know what some of you are thinking immediately. You'll say, oh, this will give a free pass to governors to fiddle with election results and keep themselves in power. My answer is maybe. But remember that a county, unlike a country, a county, has a national government above it. So the national government can be an oversight, can step in. Yes, so that's a big difference. It will not be very easy for governors to fiddle, and even if they do, the national government can intervene. Now, obviously, if that bill is passed or that law is adjusted so that the county becomes, each county has the IEBCs devolved into each county, then it will not be relevant if we change to a system, a parliamentary system. Or rather, its impact will not be so big if we change into a parliamentary system. Why? Because we will no longer have any presidential elections. You see, the way a parliamentary system works, as you all know, is that the party that garners the most seats forms the government. And if there's a problem, if one party does not exactly have enough seats, then they form a coalition with another party, and together they form a government. And of course, the leader of that party with the majority in parliament becomes the prime minister or the head of state. Okay, it's as simple as that. So in such a scenario, you don't need presidential elections. Now, one of the most popular books I've ever written is titled Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency. To cut a long story short, the Dark Secrets portrays how the office of the presidency has been the office which has committed the most political evil, murder, etc., against the Kenyan people. Okay? And it takes a look at the Jomo Kenyatta presidency, the Moi presidency, and so on and so forth. And we give specific examples where this idea of having power centered in one man, executive power, has a lot of temptations. Somebody wants to be authoritarian. They want to control everything. They want to lord it over everybody, and they want to have complete control over parliament and so on and so forth, so as to get the agenda through. What the crafters of the constitution envisaged, which is give and take. You sit down and you negotiate, and you lobby and you compromise in forming laws. Presidents don't want to do that. They want to be the boss. A small god. Yes, the book talks about that, and if you read through the book, I assure you that by the end of it, you will not want to hear about a presidential system. And so that clearly gives you my viewpoint on this issue. I have always been for a parliamentary system. Okay, it's very sad that the initial constitution, the Yash Palgai constitution, which was massacred by Kibaki and his team, that constitution had a very strong parliamentary system. It was a hybrid system. But the president was just ceremonial. All the power was in parliament and a parliamentary system. Okay, it's very sad that that was abandoned. Now, folks, this should not be boring. The whole idea is that, yes, we're in a crisis now, but don't you think it's a good idea to make sure that we never get into this crisis again? Yes, and it's not about personalities, it's not about a good president or a bad one. You just have to make sure you put checks and balances, laws in place that will make it impossible for you to create another monster called a dictator ever again in the history of Kenya. Now, of course, with the current political dispensation we have, with Jubilee the majority in both houses, such adjustments, suggestions, proposals will never see the light of day. They'll never pass through parliament and be made to law. That's obvious. Okay, but the whole idea here is that NASA, as I told you, the game is mos, gradual. Okay. And hopefully with the changes that are coming to Kenya, it will be very easy to pass these new adjustments to the law that will make for a better Kenya for all of us and future generations. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.